Emily, thank you so much. It's good to be here. No, it's actually great to be here with you all. My name's Michael Norton. I'm the Executive Vice President of our Enterprise Sales team here at Sandler. So for those of you who are trying to close out Q4 here, or just the quarter, if you're not in the fiscal calendar year, and how you're trying to build your funnel for Q1, hopefully I'll be able to pass along some of the things that we think about here at Sandler while we're managing the team here and trying to close our own business, because we deal with the same pressures that you all deal with as we get into a Q4 situation. It's a lot of pressure. We get we're sweating it out sometimes. Hopefully we can get some of those deals across the finish line and hit our number long before Christmas. But we're in it now. We are right in Q4, and I want to spend these next 25 minutes or so sharing three things basically with you. One is, how do we sell on urgency? How do we create that urgency? How do we sell on value, even though sometimes we have to discount, but how do we preserve margin as best as we possibly can? And then how do we leverage our network that is out there working for us, and how do we really make the most of that? For those of you who are familiar with Sandler, you're here because of your Sandler trainer, you're here because you're an enterprise client. We talk a lot about behavior, attitude, and technique, the Sandler success triangle. Well, basically what I'm going to share with you here today falls into the attitude bucket. As we're creating urgency, as we're selling value, and as we're leveraging our network, I just want to have you think about the mindset for each one of those. And to get started, I want to share just a little story with you first. The story is called Acres of Diamonds, and I heard this a long time ago, and many of you probably are familiar with the story as well. And the story goes like this. There was a farmer down in Africa, owned a farm, a ranch. He was doing unbelievably well. And then all of a sudden, the diamond craze came to Africa. People were out looking for diamond mines and veins of diamonds. And this farmer, this rancher, decided he was going to go in pursuit of trying to find his own diamond mine. So he took his ranch hands and all the people who worked for him, all the equipment he can get, and he went out trying to find diamonds. He would have to come back, get more equipment, get more people. He wound up mortgaging his house, his ranch, to get more money to fund his diamond exploration. Sadly, he never found any diamonds, and he was forced to sell his property. He sold his ranch off. Well, one day while the new owners were exploring their land and walking around their property, they crossed over a little footbridge that went over a stream. And as they were crossing over the stream, the light just happened to be exactly right, and they saw something shiny in the stream on their property. They went down, and there it was, a diamond, and not just one diamond. It was a whole vein of diamonds, acres of diamonds. So our farmer who went out looking for his riches and his diamonds, they were right in front of him all the time. And that's the first attitude piece I want to plant in your mind today, is that to close out Q4 and build Q1 as best as you possibly can, you already have everything you need right in front of you. And let's talk through that a little bit. So again, selling with urgency, selling on value, not on price, and selling through your network. A lot of times at this time of the year, or really at the end of any quarter, but really at the end of the year, we see a lot of this. And people use this technique. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. You might be using it yourself. And it's called the impending event close. Now, if this is working for you, I would never tell you to stop doing something that's working for you. What does an impending event close sound like? It could sound like, hey, I can only honor this price through the end of the month or the end of the quarter. Or we're going to have a price increase come 2026. If you don't order now, if you don't sign the agreement today, I may not have the product in stock, or I may not have the consultants available to you to be able to service your account. Things like that we hope would create some urgency to have our prospects and customers buy from us. But I will tell you that sometimes it's overused. If you're only relying on that impending event close, now if it's working and you are true to your word that the price is going to go up, or you won't have the stock, and you can only hold price for so long. But what have we really done? We've conditioned the market that says, okay, the deadline passed. We're now into January, and we're still honoring the price that we told them we wouldn't honor, right? So they became very comfortable. That's why most of us do most of our business in Q4, right? Because we've conditioned our customers to wait till the end of the year because they're going to get the best deal, and then we try to pull this impending event close on them. Now, I will share one tactic that I'd love for you to take away from this talk. a woman last year, the saleswoman last year, it was her first year with the company, and she was about $50,000 short of making her quota. This isn't, it's kind of like an impending event, but it's a little more like asking a favor. So what she decided, she was $50,000 short in making her quota. And it was right after Christmas. She had an existing customer she already sold that year, and they already were sitting on an agreement for an upsell opportunity that they were probably going to sign in early to mid-January anyway. So she was bold enough to go and call her champion, her person at the company, her who, we'll use that word, it was who her number one person was inside the company, and was just honest with her and said, hey, look, this is my first year with the company. I'm $50,000 short of making my number. We're sitting on a deal for about $100,000. I know we're going to do it anyway. Is there any chance you can get that signed this year? It would really help me out. I want to make my mark here. She wasn't doing it for the commission. She wasn't doing it for the money. She wanted to really make her mark and make her number in her first year. And don't you know her champion did it? She did it for her. Wouldn't you? If you're in a position to help somebody, wouldn't you help them? So if you find yourself in a position where all you have to be is bold enough to ask, go ahead and ask. So if we take these same things, selling with urgency, value, and selling through our network, I want to change it from the impending event to conviction. And what do I mean by conviction? Conviction has three parts. It's conviction in yourself, your knowledge, your reliability, everything you know about the industry, what you bring to the opportunity. Convicted, that's that self-confidence. Again, attitude. Conviction in your products, services, or solutions that you're selling, and that they're the right product, service, solutions for your client. And conviction in your company that they're going to stand behind you and your products and services. When you have all three levels of conviction, you can go toe to toe with any buyer, any competitor. And just remember conviction. Fortune favors the bold. Fortune favors the bold. So let's be convicted as we're trying to close out this year and build our funnel for 2026. Now, I want to say it this way. There's an absolute truth in selling. Whether you're a sales leader, salesperson, you're going to know this to be an absolute truth. The fact is that timid salespeople have skinny kids, right? You can find a little humor in that, but the truth is timidity has no place in sales. Fortune does favor the bold, especially when we're trying to close out our year, make our number, build our funnel for next year. Timidity has no place in the sales world. We've got to be convicted about what we're doing. So how do we sell with urgency? The first thing we have to ask ourselves is, whose urgency is it anyway? We, as sellers, we need the conviction about why it's urgent. And it cannot be because we need the commission check. We all know what that sounds like, that desperation, that commission breath. We want to stay away from that. But we need conviction about why. We, again, if you are a Sandler student, you're working with one of our Sandler trainers, or you're our enterprise team, we don't teach convincing. We're not about convincing. We're about helping people become self-aware that they need the product or the solution. So there's a difference between convincing and being convicted. So we have to be convicted because our prospect needs to own that conviction too, that it is urgent, that they need it now, not later. And when we're talking about urgency, we have to remember that other sales truth, that time kills deals. Time kills all deals. So we have to create that urgency. But what happens is, as we're creating that urgency, we think we're creating the urgency, or if we're not creating urgency, it comes off as this is a nice to have. And I don't know about any of you who are out there selling right now. If you're selling nice to haves, that this would be cool if we can get it, but if it's not a have to have, this is where we have to stay away from the language around nice to have, even in our own, in our heads, that head trash, that this is just a nice to have. We have to be convicted that it's a have to have. And when we're talking about conviction, we're talking about the fact that we have trust-based relationships with our buyers or our prospects. We've built that trust. We've earned that trust enough to be able to put an agreement in front of them, or a proposal, or a quote. And we have to remember that trust is super important. And trust is a transference of feeling. That's all that is, that your prospect, your customer can trust you because you're so convicted about this opportunity to get these products or services in front of them now, and they trust you. That trust will go a long way. Trust is a transference of feeling, and sales is just a transference of trust. And that's where we want to get to. So winning in the qualification step. Those of you who are familiar with Sandler, you know our Sandler selling system. But what I want you to think about when you look at this flywheel and our 7 steps, in the middle it says the Sandler selling system. But this is really your company's selling system powered by Sandler, or John's selling system powered by Sandler, Mary's selling system. You have to own the selling system. This is just Sandler's just the vehicle. But when you truly adopt the system and follow the system and stay in the system, you're more than likely going to be able to sell with urgency and sell on value when you're not. And so I just want to focus on the dark blue, though, because that's really the hallmark here of Sandler. So when we think about the qualifying step, and we start with pain, it's really, and it could be pain or gain, as we all know. When we're selling with urgency, we have to do a really good job here. Qualify hard, close easy. And it starts with the pain or the gain. What is the problem, or what's the opportunity? What's the reason for it? And what's the overall impact? I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But we also, at this time of year in Q4, we all know this to be true. Budgets are hard. People are building their budgets. They're so focused on the budget that they're setting for next year. Sometimes they've already spent their entire budget as they get into Q4, and they have to go find additional budget that wasn't planned for. So how do we help them find access to funding? And then lastly, whether we're selling here in Q4 or filling our funnel for Q1, we can't understate how important it is to know what's going to happen all along the way. Who are all the influencers, decision makers, champions, detractors who can get in the way of making us making that sale and getting this deal done? So let's unpack it just a little bit. And this is where I said the impact. And I've said this before, and I truly believe it. Qualification without quantification is meaningless. The secret to sales success and really getting good at qualifying is quantification. Having quantifiable pain in the present or quantifiable pain in the future, quantifiable gain in the present or quantifiable gain in the future. We have to do the numbers with them, not for them. You know this statement, you probably heard it before. People don't argue with their own data. If we just tell them what the data is or what the outcome might be, and they don't do the math for themselves, it's a much harder climb. So what would that sound like in our world in Sandler? We may have a prospect or a client who's really struggling. Their inside sales team or their BDR is not doing a great job at converting initial phone calls to getting a demo or a presentation closed or scheduled. What if we can increase that by 66%? These are the numbers that we get from our clients that tell us we have created a 66% improvement in initial call to demo or presentation. What if we were able to improve that from the initial demonstration or presentation to quote by 41%? And what would it mean to your business if we can increase quote to close by 39%? Now, it's different for every company because of the average sale size, average sale price, or average sale size. But we actually ask them to do the math, get a calculator out, put pen to pencil. We call this pain or gain by numbers. And when you can quantify that for them, that's when you're creating urgency in the qualification step. In the investment step, or again, around this time of year, we hear it all the time, people have budgets and it's a use it or lose it. Are they in that situation? And if when we're get really good at quantifying the pain or quantifying the gain, and they're going to be deciding where they're going to spend that money. Are they going to spend it with you, or are they going to spend it somewhere else because they are going to spend it? We have to be bold enough to be able to ask the hard question. Hey, are you in a situation where you're going to use it or lose it? And what are some of your options? Where are you considering making this investment with what you have left in your budget? Again, that goes to the money concept, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. But attitudinally, are we there? Can we ask those hard questions? And even in the decision-making process, we might have been running a sales cycle for 4 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, whatever our sales cycle is. And here we are at the end of the year. And we've gotten a lot of verbals. It looks like we're feeling good about the opportunity, but it's just not moving. It's not crossing the finish line. Again, being able to ask the hard question to our who, which is really huge, the person who is our champion, is what's in the way? How many of you make it a regular practice when you are at the end and it's not happening? Do you have the courage, the conviction to say, look, we've been down this journey for a long time together. Can I just ask you a hard question? And whenever you ask somebody that can ask a hard question, they're always going to say yes because they want to know what the hard question is. Can I ask you a hard question? What's getting in the way? What are the obstacles that we still have to clear before we can make this deal happen. So here's a question we get all the time. We want to sell on value, not on price. So is it ever okay to discount? Does Sandler ever teach discounting? The answer is of course. And we don't want to discount, but each deal is situational or unique. And there's a lot of factors that ride on discounting. So when we think about that, we can't get into the habit of discounting right away, because the only winner in a race to the bottom is a downhill skier, right? We don't, when we go down, when we lower our price, when we discount too low, it's super hard to get that price back up again. So we want to do everything we can to protect margin, to protect price. But when we're going to be in situations where we do have to discount, we're going to have to discount. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the first thing you have to think about is this a discounting process? Is this a discounting policy that we have inside the organization? What is my own belief system? What's my attitude around discounting? Well, who needs to discount? Is it the prospect or the customer to make this deal happen? Is it you, the seller, who needs to discount so you can make your quarter or your year? Is it the manager who needs to discount so they get their bonus because they're compensated on a team goal? Or is the company really, the investors, the board, the bonuses for everybody else on the team are relying on that number coming in Q4? So who really needs that discount? That's the first question you have to answer. But the harder question is, do we really need to discount? And this is one of those business decisions that has to get made, because how many times we're trying to force those deals into Q4, and if we don't have good funnel discipline, good pipeline discipline, that we know our Q1 is going to be full and robust and give us lots of opportunities, we have to ask ourselves, hey, we're going to get this deal anyway. Is it that important that we get it in the quarter? And by how much are we willing to discount to make that happen? Or we know we're going to get the deal, whether it's next month or next quarter, and we want to preserve as much margin as we possibly can. So it really comes down to what's more important. Is it the right solution for the client, or is it the right deal at the right price with the right margin? That's what we have to consider. Here's one when it comes to the discounting dilemma, responding versus reacting. And when we think about responding, just when you think about the two words, respond and react, respond always sounds better. When we respond to something, we're usually doing the right thing. We've thought it through. There's lots of rationale behind it. Sometimes when we react, we either underreact and don't do enough, or we overreact. So let's just unpack that for a minute. Responding favorably to the real issues. If I'm really considering a discount, what are the real issues that are driving this? Is it a competitive bid? Is my prospect telling me, look, XYZ company, your competitor is already here at this price. Can you match that price? Or they've come and told you, look, I have a finite number and I can't get a penny more. So I have an actual budget that I have to live within. Those are responding. So when we think about how we're going to discount, we're going to be responding to the real issues that are going on. But as I said, most salespeople just never respond, or just never react. They either underreact and don't discount enough, they taking for granted that they're going to win the opportunity, or they jump in right away and they go as low as they possibly can go to try to secure the business. What we want to do is leverage our trust-based relationships. We teach here at Sandler having had an adult-to-adult truth-based conversation to understand what are the real issues. Is it competitive? Is there an actual budget? And not only asking the right questions along the way, but we have to be able to ask those hard questions. And in Q4, there's no room not to ask the hard questions if you're trying to close out your year. So get really comfortable with just asking people, can I ask you a hard question? And get right down to it. Where do you need to be to win this opportunity? And again, selling on value. So we hear this all the time, and we hear people say it. Hey, my sellers are just, they sell on price. They don't sell on value. Well, is that easier said than done? Why? Why is that easier said than done? Well, I think three things. I think there is a lack of conviction. We'll talk about that. People feel like they're just selling a commodity, that there is no value, or they just have a poor money concept. And when we think of that, it's lack of conviction, lack of belief in their differentiators, or they just don't believe this is the right time for that product or solution. They're just not convicted about it. when it comes to selling a commodity, we have to ask ourselves two things. Am I truly selling a commodity, or have I commoditized myself? And then are we uncomfortable asking for money either here in Q4 because we don't have any more budget or money left and we're even struggling, or we struggle with money concept throughout the entire year? And if that's you, if you really do struggle with money concept, again, your Sandler trainers are super equipped to help you get past that head trash and past that money concept. So let me share a real case study with you. So we do a lot of work in construction materials in all industries, but I'm going to use this particular example for you. Concrete, cement, precast, concrete pipe, aggregates. If you talk to most people in the industry, they're going to tell you they can buy the same thing from the guys down the street. There's really no differentiator. It comes down to pennies or per linear foot, or a couple dollars per ton or per yard. Well, if we worked with one of the bigger clients in that industry that we worked with, they did the right thing, and they had their sales leaders come through the training first. And they talked about this, and they talked about hearing this from their sellers. And we tasked the leaders with saying, okay, if you were selling today and you were selling your product and you were going to differentiate it, in this breakout session, let's come up with all the things that separate you from your competitor. And if you haven't done this for yourself and your organization, truly looking at what differentiates you from the pack, I highly suggest that you do that. What they came back with was their quality was tested over and over again to be superior than the competitors. They always had on-time delivery, which in that business is huge. So you don't have people waiting around on job sites and paying those people not doing anything. It mitigated risk. It increased their profitability. They had the #1 safety record in the industry. They took a true partner approach, trusted advisor approach, superior project management, and the knowledge of their salespeople, the knowledge of the people on their team, their subject matter experts, was far superior. And that's you. Don't ever underestimate the power that you bring and the differentiation that you bring as a seller. And what was the outcome here? I was at a conference when they stood up and they talked about winning $1 billion award. They won $1 billion bid, and they talked about how really being convicted on their differentiators being the difference. What does that look like in the technology world? Same thing. They can buy the same thing from another tech company, no differentiation or competitive advantage. Well, talking to one of a super top performer in the industry who made President's Club every year, she was just convicted completely on their product. Their technology was easy to use, easy to customize, and fast to deploy. And she believed in that wholeheartedly, and she was convicted about that. So when she was up in a competitive situation, she relied on that and demonstrating with conviction why it was easy to use, how easy it was to customize, and how quickly they could deploy it. Within technology, we all know are 3 critical factors. Hey, it would be nice here in the fourth quarter if we got a bluebird, right? If we had we all get bluebirds from time to time. There's nothing like it when they just fly right into our house. We love when bluebirds are happening. But let's talk about when they're not happening and what we need to do. We need to really sell through our network. And I'm going to share with you in just a second here. You already know everybody you need to know in order to be successful. You want to know the difference between your sales cycle time and your closing cycle time, and why those people in your network are super important, because this will help you with Q4 and Q1. Again, say your sales cycle is 4 to 6 months. Your closing cycle is usually then 4 to 6 weeks. Even if your sales cycle is 9 to 12 months, your closing cycles, those last 4 to 6 weeks, are critical. And your who here, the person that you're champion, the person who's brought you in, your ultimate decision maker, the buying committee that you've built relationships with, they are huge in these last 4 to 6 weeks. So selling through your network, and then getting ready to wrap this up. This is you, right? What I want you to focus on is, who are the 3 people in the prospect or the company that you're working with and trying to sell that you need to know? Who are the 3 people in your industry who sell non-competing products, they're in an adjacent industry, but still calling on the same customers that you're calling on, or in the region? Who are the biggest influencers and people you need to know in your business? Who are the top 3? And that's critical, because those 3 people will have their top 3 people in the company, the industry, or the region. Now you've went from 1 to 12, and we know how this works, right? Then it becomes exponential. They're all going to have 3 people in their networks. Now you're at 27. We just played it out. You go to 81 and even more. There's a book called The Power of Who by Bob Beaudine. Highly recommended. If you haven't read this book, this goes through this in detail. But Bob will tell you that these first 12, the 3 that you really want to know, and then your next 9, those are they become your inner circle. They will help you get deals pushed across the finish line. They'll know the right people. They'll help open doors to create new opportunities. And then as you go higher, these next 27 are your who friends, because after that, you've got allies and advocates and just acquaintances. And as my good friend David Knorr says, we all look at our LinkedIn and maybe we've got 500, we've got 1,000, we've got 5,000, we've got 10,000, 30,000 connections in our LinkedIn, but we can't possibly be that close to all of those people. David Knorr will tell you your top 100. Bob Beaudine will tell you your top 40. You and 39 other people are everybody you need to know to get the job done. These are what we call, this is a less is more approach, but this is what we call your acres of diamonds, where we started this conversation. You already have everything you need to know. You have all the people you need to know, selling with urgency, selling with value to close out this year strong and start Q1 even stronger. Again, my name is Michael Norton. My email is right there. If you got any questions about anything I said today, as everybody else has shared, we hope to see you at the summit in March. It's going to be a great event in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And just remember this: talent without effort breeds mediocrity. Don't be mediocre.